the Blackbeard pirates have finally made their move, and the information that we got in this chapter about Blackbeard is truly amazing, because we may finally know what he is up to and the main reason the Blackbeard pirates came to Egghead Island in the first place. And as if that wasn't enough yet, we finally also get a solid clue about the dark secrets of Teach's past that you might have missed from the original Japanese. Because two of Blackbeard's main officers are just about to leave the island when Saint Saturn comes crashing down at their feet. And based on this truly mind-blowing interaction when you really think about it, I think I finally cracked the mystery of what the Blackbeard pirates were doing here in the first place. And to set this all up, let me take you back to chapter 1059, which was the very first time that the genetically enhanced Seraphim were first introduced to the story. And now, who else was in this very same scene? Well, that would be Blackbeard himself, of course. And the thing that I think surprised many of us was that Blackbeard seemed legitimately scared of these things and their monstrous powers. I mean, they are seriously an entire army all by themselves with insane speed, power recovery, and on top of all that, they even have perfect devil fruits to match their unique fighting styles as well. And so yeah, based on that experience of nearly being wiped out by the Seraphim, I truly do believe that Blackbeard has been trying to figure out a way to take these indestructible powerhouses all for himself, and he may have finally done that. Do you see where I'm going with this? Yeah, let's dive in head first and explain exactly how Blackbeard is going to take control of the Seraphim. Because as we saw in the current chapter, one of the Blackbeard pirates on Egghead Island is Katarina Devon, who ate the nine-tailed fox fruit, which allows her to shapeshift into anyone else she touches. And we actually saw this game-changing ability all the way back in chapter 925, where she first transformed into the former invisibility fruit user. And up until now, we've never really known how her powers actually worked, but in this chapter, we got a very important hint of that when she touches Saturn and then said, "Mission completed," well, that might have been part of it. And while I've already seen this one single line send tons of people down the rabbit hole of what this secret mission could have been, and we'll discuss some of those insane possibilities in just a few moments, but first, let's stick with the main idea centered around the Seraphim here. So, the reason that all of this is possible in the first place is that when Katarina Devon touched Saturn, we can reasonably assume that she can now also transform into him. I mean, remember, this is basically exactly how the clone fruit works, where Mr. Two-Bone Clay had to touch a person first before he could then copy their face. So let's assume that Devon's powers are the same, because if she could literally just turn into anyone she wants without any restriction whatsoever, that would be way too busted an ability. Also, I mean, look at how much emphasis Oda puts on that touch in that chapter. It's a pretty clear hint, I think. So now the reason this ability is really important to the Seraphim theory is of course because earlier in this arc, we were introduced to the command structure for the Seraphim in the first place, which, if you remember, the highest tier of the command structure is in fact the 5 elders, whose orders basically cannot be overruled. And so yeah, that means that if Katarina Devon can now transform into Saint Saturn, one of the Gorosei, she could theoretically at least be able to command the Seraphim anytime the Blackbeard pirates run into them on the battlefield. Which honestly just sounds like the perfect sort of sneaky plan that Blackbeard would come up with, let's be real. It's basically like he saw an opponent that he really didn't want to fight, so he figured out a way to get them on his side instead. Now, you might be thinking that this is all just speculation, and you're right, of course, but let's go through some other pieces of evidence for why this makes so much sense, in my opinion at least. First, from this chapter, it actually seems like Devon and Van Augur weren't exactly expecting Saturn to be here in the first place. And why would they? Because no one knew that Saturn was here until he actually showed up in his demon form on the islands. However, this fact alone helps us understand why Devon said that Saturn showing up here makes their mission so much easier, because I do believe that Blackbeard sent Devon and Van Augur originally here to find some way to control the Seraphim. Now, originally, the mission might have been to find something like an authority chip which can let anyone give them orders, or maybe having Katarina Devon copy the appearance of one of the Vegapunks who can also issue commands. However, clearly, with all of the chaos going on here, those two things would have been very hard to pull off, so when Saturn fell into their lap, it just made their mission that much easier. Which, I mean, if this really works out like the Blackbeard pirates probably hope that it will, then they're gonna have an unbelievable advantage whenever the Seraphim are actually with them on the battlefield. And I mean, even if we don't see this show up for a long time, it could just be the perfect twist to turn the tide of an all-out war between pirates and the world government. Plus, wouldn't it just be so fitting that the Seraphim would also eventually switch sides, since we've already seen the Pacifista change over to Bonnie's side for good, so just a little bit of dramatic irony, if you ask me. In other words, just the thing that Oda loves to do. Now, of course, that's not the only option for why the Blackbeard pirates might be here. For example, being able to impersonate a member of the literal Gorosei has insane implication and benefits on its own, which of course we'll get to in just a second. But since I don't think that that was their actual original mission, another idea is that they were here to steal the poneglyph copies from the Straw Hat ship, for example. Which, I mean, come on, there are literally no other more perfect characters to sneak in somewhere without being noticed than someone who can teleport and another one who can transform into someone else. So yeah, still not leaving that option off the table, I'm gonna be honest. However, one other really common theory for their presence here was for them to kidnap Robin, and that honestly doesn't appear as likely anymore. I mean, we just saw her 2 chapters ago and she clearly isn't with them now, so Robin does appear to be safe for now, unless that was already Katarina Devon. Although I do have to say that doesn't of course mean that they didn't steal some other really powerful technology that the former Admiral Aokiji told them about, but I'm still gonna stick with the Seraphim theory for now at least. And speaking of theories though, this interaction at the end of the chapter also dropped a line here that was basically something like throwing a whole bottle of gasoline onto a massive dumpster fire of Blackbeard theories. Because when Katarina Devon says that Teach is quote-unquote special and Saturn responded that his lineage is also special, my mind just about burst. I mean, like, wow. One Piece fans have literally been speculating about Blackbeard's mysterious past since his introduction over 20 years ago. So finally hearing a confirmed hint that something is actually unique and special about his past is just such an amazing feeling, because it does feel like we could soon be learning about one of the most important mysteries in the entire story. Now, to quickly recap why Blackbeard is so mysterious though, here is what we do know about Blackbeard's special abilities. Ever since his first introduction in Jaya, Luffy and Zoro knew that there was something off about him. In fact, those two famously called Blackbeard they, plural, almost as if they were referring to Blackbeard as more than just one person. Then of course we have the former Yonko commander Marco stating that the structure of Blackbeard's body has always been really weird, and that might be why he could eat more than one devil fruit. And then during the Odin flashback in Wano, the young Buggy told a young Shanks that Blackbeard is actually rumored to never sleep. Plus of course we have his connections to the number 3, which has always stood out, and the fact that sometimes he is a straight up coward and other times an evil mastermind, really brave and powerful. So yeah, there is obviously something going on with Blackbeard, and the theories that he has multiple people inside him, multiple personalities or bodies, that would explain his ability to eat multiple devil fruits. But bringing this all the way back to his family lineage, we're of course going to talk about what I think is the most likely scenario, and you might be surprised that there are more clues about the true nature of Blackbeard's special lineage than would be obvious on the surface. Because the first thing that people are probably going to think of is that Blackbeard is related to the Buccaneer race. See, called it. You thought I was gonna say something else? You thought Buccaneer, I called it. And basically we've been introduced to the Buccaneers quite recently in the story during Kuma's flashback. And to be fair, I want to be clear, this is of course an entirely possible scenario. I mean, there are still many more mysteries about the Buccaneer tribe and their unique abilities that we still have to learn about. So if Blackbeard were to be a descendant of the Buccaneers, that would be a good way to surprise us with some more insane powers, I think. But there is quite a lot of evidence, I think, that shows that Blackbeard is not a buccaneer, starting with the actual word that Saturn uses in Japanese. Because the actual Japanese word that Oda uses here is keto, which typically refers to more of a direct lineage or bloodline, such as parents and grandparents and so on and so forth, or in general like a family tree. And while that might not seem majorly important, the word that is used when discussing the Buccaneers and introducing them is basically the same when we introduce other races in the One Piece world, like the fishmen, for example. In other words, already there is quite a big difference that hints that the Blackbeard / Buccaneer connection isn't really super clear here. And if that wasn't enough to make you question that, then listen to this. Because ever since we started Kuma's backstory, we have clearly been shown that the world government has made it a mission for themselves to completely wipe out the Buccaneer race. In fact, as soon as the government learned about Kuma's family tree, they immediately captured them and sentenced them into slavery. Saturn even makes it very clear that he wants to stamp out the Buccaneer race once and for all together with Kuma. And so, if Saturn knows that Blackbeard is a Buccaneer, wouldn't it be very strange for the world government to just let him become a warlord? I mean, the only reason they let Kuma join was because he was virtually already their mindless cyborg, not really alive anymore. And honestly, I think it would be more than likely that they would go hard after Blackbeard if he was actually a Buccaneer, since that race is such a big threat to the world government apparently. Now, of course, it could just be that Saturn didn't know at that point that Blackbeard was a Buccaneer, or it could be a case where Oda just didn't have everything planned out very smoothly back then, but still, this one is another big obstacle in Blackbeard being part Buccaneer, for me at least. If he's not a Buccaneer, and we are a lot more specifically talking about his family lineage, then that leaves us with one major option for what they are talking about here. And that, of course, is that Blackbeard is actually the son of the pirate who nearly took over the world before, Rox D. Zebek. And of course, we have talked at length about this topic before, so I won't go over it all here, but this could certainly be another big step towards the reveal that Blackbeard is in fact somehow related to Rox. However, if that is actually the answer to the question of his lineage, we still need to ask what makes him personally so special. And this one is still really tough to answer. I mean, we still don't know that much about Rox's special abilities, so it's nearly impossible to say anything else about Blackbeard just based on a connection with Rox. So yeah, that once again brings us back to the question of his family line. Again, the Buccaneer race is still an option, especially since there seems to be something weird going on with Kuma's soul and an unexplained ability that he has. But then there could also be some sort of unexplained power that he has because he is actually Rox's descendants. However, of course, these two aren't the only options. In fact, I have two more, with one that is just incredibly out there, but also very spicy. But first, I want to throw out the idea that Blackbeard is somehow related to the Celestial Dragons. I mean, yeah, that would explain how Saturn knows about his family line. Plus, we've already seen the Celestial Dragons throw out half-blood kids when they no longer need them, so that could explain Blackbeard's orphaned childhoods. But much more interesting than that option, the real idea that I want to talk about is a connection between Blackbeard and another one of the most mysterious tribes in One Piece, the Three-Eyed Tribe. And yeah, in case you forgot, we were first introduced to the Three-Eyed Tribe with Big Mom's daughter Pudding, who, as we can see, literally has a third eye in the middle of her forehead. And coincidentally, Blackbeard has already captured Pudding from Big Mom's territory. Now, initially, we all thought that this was because he wanted to use the Three-Eyed Tribe's ability to hear the voice of all things to read the poneglyphs, but we also have to question how he actually knew about this ability in the first place. Well, if it is because he's actually also a member of the Three-Eyed Tribe, that would make a whole lot of sense and explain how he knew of Pudding's ability and that it was important to capture her in the first place. So yeah, in fact, I am saying that Blackbeard might actually have a third hidden eye right in the middle of his forehead as well. And I mean, have you ever seen him not wearing his hat or bandana covering part of his massive forehead ever? I don't think we have. So I'm just saying that this is a real possibility. And if that actually were to be the case, then then maybe their lineage holds the real key to understanding Blackbeard's mysterious powers as well. But one way or the other, all of this has just got me really excited for learning more about Blackbeard in the future, but let's also discuss the other stunning reveal from the very end of this chapter, because at long last, we finally see one of the most scumbag characters in all of One Piece make his return as well. And of course, we're talking about the Swamp Man himself, Caribou, showing up and groveling in front of Devon and Van Augur. And let me remind you that this miserable excuse for a human has actually locked some game-changing secrets, because Caribou knows that the mermaid princess Shirahoshi is the ancient weapon Poseidon, and that the ancient weapon Pluton is somehow trapped under the walls of Wano. I mean, seriously, this information is just about the most top secret information in the entire world, and I'm not sure anyone else beside the Straw Hat crew actually knows about this. And so the fact that Caribou so desperately wants to join the Blackbeard Pirates means that he fully intends to tell Blackbeard what he knows. In fact, he basically said that much back in chapter 1056. And so unless Van Augur and Katarina Devon reject Caribou, which honestly would be quite hilarious, let's be real, then we would have to assume going forward that Blackbeard will very soon actually know the locations of two ancient weapons and would very likely make a move to somehow capture them. Which, if he can somehow do that, and he does have the Earthquake Fruit to bring down the walls of Wano and use the powers as part of his world-conquering agenda, then, man, we're in for a real rough fight. Ancient weapons on top of possibly the Seraphim as well, and he might just be way too overpowered at the end of the story for anyone to stop him. Now, of course, on top of that, we also know that Blackbeard somehow is desperate to join the world government as a recognized king. And while we still don't really know why, I previously speculated that he simply wants access to Merijoa so he can sneak in and steal some secret power, or maybe even confront the world's secret ruler. However, while those plans don't appear to have worked out just yet, if Katarina Devon can now turn into Saturn, then Blackbeard and his crew could just sneak into Merijoa using the stolen identity of one of the 5 elders. And if we also consider that there's also the distinct possibility that Katarina Devon and Van Augur made copies of the Straw Hat Road poneglyphs while they were here, then Blackbeard could be truly on the path to finding the One Piece and taking over the world. But he still needs one more poneglyph, of course, but if he's searching for the last one, then this could be setting up a mouth-watering clash on Elbaf, where we all assume the last road poneglyph is waiting. And let's be real, if it wasn't there, that would be quite hilarious, but I think it is. And speaking of Elbaf, can we just appreciate how truly excited Usopp was to see the giant friends he has? I mean, seriously, if there was anyone in the world who he would have loved to see, it is these guys. Because not only are the giants from Little Garden here, but we also see the giants that Usopp befriended back on Enies Lobby, and with these giant reinforcements, it really seems like they're going to sweep through the Marines and clear a path for the Straw Hats to escape. And to do that though, Sanji might have to step up in a really big way. However, much to many people's surprise, he actually did just that when he stood up to Kizaru in this chapter, something that many people, including me, have been hoping for. Because when he blocked the Admiral's powerful laser and then dropped the cold line that love is more powerful than light, which makes no sense but is hilarious, I got some real shivers running down my back. Plus, anytime that Sanji lights up his cigarette, you do know he's about to give it his all and bust out something seriously heroic. I do wonder though if there's actually something more to the fact that Sanji gets stronger when he's protecting a woman. I mean, even in this chapter, we have more discussion about the power of belief when Bonnie and Luffy are talking about Nika. So clearly Bonnie's powers rely on believing in what is possible, so who's to say that Sanji can also get a boost from a strong belief in his duty of protecting a woman? And also, while we're talking about this scene though, isn't it just awesome that Luffy doesn't even know who Nika is? I mean, we've known for a long time, but he doesn't care about the history or the importance of what other people think about him. He just wants to be free and protect his friends, which he does exactly that by pummeling Saturn with a brand new attack. However, interestingly enough, Saturn's mysterious eye powers actually do affect Luffy even in his Gear 5 form. So it's not like Luffy's completely immune to this sort of attack because of strong haki like we previously thought. It just wasn't very effective because he just ended up shrugging it off. Zoro, on the other hand, is not having it quite so easy as Sanji and Luffy because he is still fighting the Leopard Man Lucci, which honestly is a lot more surprising than Sanji stepping up and blocking the laser beam of Kizaru. Because let's be real, I think we all thought that Zoro would win this fight pretty easily since Luffy took Lucci down with no sweat at all, so to see them still fighting is honestly a little bit of a shock. I mean, surely it won't be that much longer though because Jinbei is coming to help, but maybe Zoro still needs more growth than we actually thought if he's truly going to stand any chance of becoming the world's strongest swordsman. And honestly, if we want to be really mean from his showing in this chapter, he might actually be the furthest away from his dream than any of the other Straw Hats. But if you want to see how much each of the Straw Hats have actually grown and progressed towards their dream throughout the story and how close they are to their ultimate goals, then you can watch this video right here. I literally go through the entire character arc and power development of each Straw Hat. And as always, if you enjoyed the video, please like, share, subscribe. It's annoying, but really helps out the channel. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.